we are focusing on today. As you all know, there are 3 parts to the Bugrut, and we have a Speak to Go practice program that supports all of them, parts A, B, and C. So the interview, discussing the project, and the simulation. And everything we do is lined as closely as possible to the, to the COBE, with the rubrics of the COBE in mind. So we've looked at the way your students are going to be marked. We've spoken to teachers in multiple schools about how they teach and how they practice and how they get outside resources into practice with the students, so that we can understand how your students prepare properly. What is the success story for preparing for the COBE? And we've created our lessons, built our lessons in order to support that. So all of these rubrics, many of the topics, the idea of how long the students speak for, the fluency and so on, it's all been incorporated into what we do with Speak to Go. Okay, so what is the point about practicing with Speak to Go that allows your students to really push for those higher level grades and meet those rubric demands when it comes to the COBE? One of the key things with the COBE is being able to answer the question. And that means that your students need to be able to find the language, to give an opinion, to give an answer, to express their thoughts, to describe events. And it's not just real events, but it's imagined events. What would happen if? To express their ideas, their personal views, to give explanations. So many times they're asked a question, and the last part of the question is explain. It's a short statement, but it means so much. Have you got it here? Explain, explain, explain. And that's what we really push your students to do. The thing is, in the actual exam, your students have time to think, and with enough practice, they'll realize they have the time to think. Just bear with me. I'm just going to turn off the bell. Okay. So we give your students practice that allows them to actually focus on what's required of them. So take part A, it's a 25-part point of the exam. It really only takes them a couple of minutes to listen to the questions, to hear them again, to work out which one they want to answer. It's not time consuming. The same with my project. The questions are short. It's a matter of 20 seconds in terms of listening to a question and then the time to answer it. And with the audio visual, the video is not too long. So all of that takes a maximum 10 minutes, and your students have 30 minutes for the exam. So that gives them 20 minutes to think, to make sure they've answered the question, to make sure that their answer is the best answer that they can give, and to make a decision as to whether they need to re-record it or to keep it. So they really have time in the exam to do their best, which means that as we give them practice, as we give them speaking practice, they have the opportunity to really prepare by becoming calm, to take away the pressure, to show them what tools they have in their own box. So the idea with Speak to Go for the COBE is to practice speaking. Speak to Go only accepts verbal responses. Everything is about speaking, and the students do it at their own pace, because in the exam they have time. So let them work at their own pace. So the way it works is students listen, and then they repeat using the microphone, and what they speak is recorded and it's played back to them, so they have a chance to listen and digest. Is that my best answer? Should I click submit, or should I re-record it? And they get all of the coloured feedback and the pronunciation feedback, and they can listen and repeat as often as they want. So what we're doing is we're training them to make language automatic, and it's the right language because it meets the rubrics and it meets the topic requirements of the COBE. So their self-confidence grows, their language skills are developed. I'm going to skip this slide. And what it means is, when you take all of these topics, whether it's talking about parents or pets or animals or your neighborhood, your students end up having a toolbox of answers using language that is well within their reach, that they can then produce in the exam because they practice listening and speaking and responding and re-recording. So when it comes to the exam, there's less pressure. I know there's always pressure in the exam, but they can call on all of those skills to do the absolute best that they're able to do. So this is the catalogue in Speak to Go, and I hope you've all had a look at the catalogue and you know what it's about. I'm sorry it's so small, but just to show you, it's broken down into parts A, B, and C, and then there's a simulation as well. And here what you can see is the topics. You can see what parts are included in the topics. So every lesson that has new vocabulary introduced, for example, you have 3 lessons on my neighborhood. The first lesson includes vocabulary that you might want your students to practice regarding talking about my neighborhood or my hometown. So that lesson has it has a word section where they have Quizlet and then they speak words and hear words and speak words. It has conversation practice, and I'll go into that in a minute. It has free speech questions, so the students' answers are recorded and saved for you. And in this case, as I said, it's got Quizlet as well. For talking about my project, it's divided into chunks because the questions can be asked in a number of ways. Did you work on your own? Did you work as part of a group? How did you choose your topic? Is there anything that you want to continue doing about your topic? So what we've done is we've broken the discussion about a project into these 5 lessons, and we've also added a sample answer about a topic, the topic of anorexia, where the students actually go through from beginning to end answering questions about that subject as if they were talking about their own project. And then for the audiovisual, they've got all the sample audiovisuals. It's nothing new. All of these examples are available for you online for your students to use online. But what we've done is slightly different. We've stopped the video at a point where there is something going on that the students may be required to talk about. So, for example, where you have the movie with the fridge and the handle falls off, it's like, what is he thinking? What might he be thinking? We stop at certain points so the students recognize there may be something in that video that they have to respond to. Take note, and if you're asked a question, we give them examples of how to answer it. They practice and then they move on in the video. So it's not the video as a whole, it's broken down really nicely into chunks to give them a chance to develop their responses. And then you've got a sample simulation as well. Okay. So it says here the selector guide makes lesson planning easier, and that's absolutely right. And one of the very lovely teachers on this group has agreed that I can share this with you. This is it's not the only one, it's just a sample, but this is an example of how you can teach a lesson on my neighborhood and use the Speak to Go lesson, My Neighborhood 1. So the suggestion is that the student, the lesson combines frontal teaching with Speak to Go practice. It incorporates the teacher introducing the vocabulary and then using Quizlet to help the students practice that vocabulary in their own time, and then working with Speak to Go to practice their pronunciation, their answers. And then what the teacher's very cleverly done is added different games onto the end of that. So dividing the class into groups and presenting sentences on the board and getting groups to complete the vocabulary and so on. There's different ways to interact and take what the kids have learnt with Speak to Go and bring it into a kind of classroom setting. And you've got here, I love the bit at the end, speed talk in pairs. It's like speed dating. Get the kids to talk to each other and kind of move the circle around so that they interview each other maybe for a minute or two at a time and then switch over or move along. So there are many different ways you can bring Speak to Go into your classroom, but what you're seeing here is an idea as to how you can take teaching your students about a particular COBE topic to a new level by introducing the Speak to Go practice and then adding something on in class that they can then use to improve. So that was a really nice lesson plan. Okay. With Speak to Go for the COBE, there are 2 types of speech practice formulas and formats that we use. One is a structured response, which you know from many of the other Speak to Go lessons. The students don't have to think of an answer. They see a question, they hear a question asked, and then they have a choice of answers on the screen that they follow, that they repeat. It's not difficult, but it teaches them to use the vocabulary, it teaches them to use the vocabulary correctly. And then you have a free speech question. This is an open question. There's no answer on the screen, but the question is related to what the students have just done. So they've been given the tools to answer the question, and they're now given the opportunity to speak an answer of their choosing. So for example, if you're talking about hometown and there's an answer about living in an apartment in a busy city, or there's an answer about living in a house on a moshav, the student can then give their own free speech answer according to themselves. So they're actually answering something that they're going to be able to answer again in the future. So the free speech answer is really important in terms of ensuring that the student has understood how they can answer a question. And all of those recordings are collected for you as the teacher. And we'll go and we'll have a look at the control panel so that you can see that. Okay, let's just see. So everything that the students hear is narrated by a native speaker. This is Alice. She's a native speaker. She's a professional narrator. Her English is very clear. The students respond really well to it. So they're hearing a very nice, friendly, gentle voice when they go through everything. Okay, so let's take a sample lesson. Let's take a question. How was school today? You and I know there are many different ways to answer that question. You can say school was hard because we have exams. We can say today was my favorite day because we had science. And you can say we learned a lot of new facts in science. Or you can say all three of those answers. Or you can take the next question. What did you do in class today? And you can add any of those answers. So by breaking a question down into small parts, small manageable sentences that students are comfortable speaking, and then by asking a question in a slightly different way and giving a new set of answers that they can use, and then doing it again, really what you've got here is an answer that the students can speak to give that fluid, correct answer to a question type response that's going to get them good marks. So this is the layering that we use with Speak to Go. The students listen to a question, they have series of answers. Weak students can just give one answer, and then they can go back and they can try and give two. If you're a strong student, you can give all three answers, and you'll give a longer spoken answer for your free speech question. But all of this might be concluded with a question like, how was school today? And there you go, you've got 9 possible answers, and mix that with everything that you're teaching in class, and suddenly you've got a really nice answer to a COBE question. I'll give you another example. You can see here, I'll just explain the questions. What do you like best about your school? What do you like? Oh, I want to know, what do you like best about your school? Or why is your school a good school? They're really the same question. I mean, 2 of them are the same question. They really are the same question. And you can give any mix of any of those answers and you can fine tune them. But practicing like this and then asking a student to give a free speech answer to the question, tell me about your school, makes it much more achievable. So those 4-point students who are just kind of struggling to pull everything together, they're great at the written English, they can do the written comprehension, all of that. But when it comes to speaking, they just need that extra push. They just need to know that they've got, we talk about the tools in the toolbox. This really helps them. So this is the structure of co-practice within Speak to Go. And here's Alfie. I'm assuming everybody knows Alfie. He's now very much part of what we do. And Alfie, I'm just going to very quickly go through this. Let me actually show you where Alfie is. So Alfie is very much a part of Speak to Go training. When it comes to the simulations, we've copied the format of the Alfie narration. So when you go into, I'm going to actually go do what all of you have got and go into the sample lesson so I can show you a simulation. Alfie guides the students through their practice lessons. So here we go. Here we've got a simulation. And what you'll see is Alfie taking the kids through, Alfie explaining this is part A. I'm going to answer you. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. You can listen to both. I don't know if you...
Hi, I'm Alfie. Welcome to the oral bug routine. That's great. Now let's begin the test. Continue to part A. Good luck. Today I'm going to ask you about famous people you like.
So I'm just demonstrating to you that you've got this teaching with Speak to Go, where you have familiar questions with short answers that are basically layered to form a full, stronger answer. And then you have practice and a simulation with Alfie taking you forward. You have your free speech questions with all the answers brought together so that you as the teacher can monitor them. So what you've really got is a full package to support you in preparing your students for the COBE. So let's just very quickly see if I can log in here and show you how some free speech. Let's have a look. I'm really not sure. Sherry, any idea where we have a class that, let's try here. Okay. I just want to show you where all of the recordings are kept for your students. So I'm in the control panel now. You can see the students here have practiced. And we'll get their grades up on the screen in a minute. So I can go in, and for each COBE lesson, for each speech practice lesson, you'll have a heading and you'll get the scores from the lesson. And then you can go into any of your students from the lesson. You can click on recordings. You can see the question that they've answered. And very importantly, you can see how long they've spoken for. So some of the questions within practicing for the COBE are multi-level questions. How was school today? What do you like about school? Is there anything that you would change about school? Explain. You'll see the full question here. So when you see a question like that, really what you want is the duration of speech to be like 45 seconds, 60 seconds, and so on. So as a teacher, you can come into the control panel. We don't have a lot of data yet, as you can see, because students are just getting into the system for the start of the year. But you can hear the answers.
Salad, meat, and vegetables.
Okay. So it's she hasn't given a full sentence. This is somebody in elementary school, but I just wanted to show you how you can go in and you can actually hear your students speaking. So what you want to see as a teacher, if a student who's working and practicing for the COBE, is multiple questions like this. And then you want to see one multi-level question, and you want to see a good time, a good kind of speaking duration here that immediately says to you, okay, this student is doing okay. Now, you don't need to click. If you've got sort of 20, 30 recordings here, you don't need to click on all of them. Click on the ones where maybe you see a short recording, where you think it should be a long recording, or click on a multi-level question to see how the students pulled everything together. But as far as you're concerned, you could be sitting one-on-one with each and every student and have all that information saved for you, and then you can just dip in and dip out to hear how they've done. So that's the feedback on the control panel. Are there any questions? Sherry, any questions?
Hi, Carolyn.
Yes.
I wrote the question in the chat.
Please.
Is it open for questions about everything, or is it just for this?
Yeah, I mean, I can keep talking, but I feel like I've been talking for 20 minutes. It's enough. It's not, I just wanted to show you that it's multi-level. It's just building up. It's not too strenuous. The language that we use, something Beverly said it last year when she did the roadshow. It's not a matter of using high-level language. It's a matter of using language that the kids can use correctly. It's a matter of answering the question that's asked. And that's what we're looking to do, to build everything up in manageable parts. But go on, ask your question.
No, I was just going to ask if it has been changed, or I'm too tired. If it's according to the new rubrics, the new guidelines for the test this year, because there has been changes.
So I think the changes are to do, as I understand it, and I reread them. The changes are more to do with the marking system, the base levels, and how testing is going to be managed with the 5 in the class and whatever else. There wasn't really, and please, if I'm wrong and I've missed something, I'd love to know. In terms of the rubrics,
you're not wrong.
Okay, all right. So in terms of the rubrics and how the students are going to be graded, how they're going to be marked, they're still, I mean, I should tell you about the microphone and everything, but they're still marked in the same way. So what we found, it was purely by chance, was that when you work with Speak to Go and you're doing your free speech answer, whenever you record yourself in Speak to Go, you hold the microphone open while you're speaking. And then when you've finished, you lift the microphone. Now, it turns out just by pure blessing that this is actually such positive training for the students, because instead of doing the start, stop, start, stop, and then after 2 of those getting penalized and having negative points, the students just become aware that if they're speaking, if they're giving an answer, they have to hold the microphone open. There's none of this record, stop, record, stop. So I think all of that matches the rubrics and the way the students are going to be marked really well. My computer screen is a little bit confusing because I see multiple products. Your students are only going to see this icon here for training lessons and this one here for demo lessons. And they must all, as soon as you can, get them started. You'll see the feedback, you'll monitor the progress. They must all go into training lessons. And you can see here, you've got Tichon here and here. They click on it. There are 4 lessons there. I'm sorry that they're not in order. We can sort that out. But they're basically made up of a video in Hebrew and an activity. And the
Caroline,
video basically...
can I interrupt for a moment?
Hi.
A number of my students in Yudbet had trouble with the 3rd lesson in the microphone didn't record their speech, and they weren't able to pass the 80% threshold in order to continue on to the other lessons.
Okay, that's not good.
But that's a question. Maybe we will do it after.
Yeah. I'll have a look. I'm going to have a look. So basically,
this is a private question. Yes.
If Shuri notes that, or if you want to send a message on the chat,
Yes.
we'll get that sorted. So that's lesson 3. Okay, we can go. I can't actually do it anyway. But for example, here the kids have got a video. They watch the video. It talks to them about the listening exercise and the conversation exercise, and then it asks them to do a little bit of a listening, and it asks them to do a conversation.
Just yell. Did you hear about the Just Yell competition?
And then they have the summary screen. So this is like training them to use the platform so that you don't have to. And it does it slowly, and it gives them a chance to listen, learn, and then practice. So all of your students need to go and do these training lessons, just as you do. And you're right about the 80% threshold. They need to get above 80%. As a teacher or coordinator, you have the opportunity to go and see everything your students do. So you can monitor them now while they're working at home. You can have them working live, and you can see that everybody is working their way through whatever assignments you've set them. And the way you do that is you click, everybody has their name on the top right-hand side here, and you have the drop down. It will either say teacher or it would say coordinator. And when you go in, this is where I say, don't look at my screen, because let's just click on, I just don't know if I've got a school. Let's assume I've got a school here. You'll go into a screen that looks something like this, where you can click on classes and you can see all of the classes in the school with the teachers' names, with the Speak to Go products that have been allocated. You can see at a glance whether it's been used or not, and what percentage has been used. You can see they've picked on a school that hasn't started. And you then go into a class, and within the class you can see all the students, and you can see all of their, so each of the lesson names will be on the top here. So even for the practice lessons, they'll be on the top here. And then you go into a student and you can click on the recordings to hear any recordings that they've made. And every teacher has that for each of their classes, and the coordinator has it for all of the classes that they're responsible for, as well as the classes they teach. And if you want to, you can produce reports. So you can produce progress reports and so on. You can use grades for your end of year reports with your students. It's all there for you. So that is your, if I can find another school, but that's how the control panel works. And there's a great video if you go into YouTube.
I already linked it to the chat.
You've done it, you've got it,
Yeah.
Fantastic. So you can go and you can see all the videos. You've got here control panel, but you've also got the classroom. You've got everything here, control panel tutorial for teachers for Speak to Go, if you want just a sort of a refresher. Okay, let me just quickly look through here and see if there is anything else that I want to just let you know about with Speak to Go. All right.
Caroline, I wanted to ask a question about the final grade of a unit. Like a student, did I understand correctly that a student gets a final grade at the end of each unit?
Yeah, you can see a percentage. Are you talking about for the COBE or for everything?
For the COBE.
So they'll see it's a grade as a percentage of what they have done.
Okay.
And it's rated also to what I'm showing you now, actually. So good question. So the program is personalized, which means that after the student has spoken a particular phoneme a few times, 3, 4, 5 times, Speak2Go knows their pronunciation for that phoneme. So it builds up a picture for every phonetic pronunciation that we cover. And then what it does is each time the student speaks, when you see the color coding underneath the words that they speak, that is their personalized response. So that's basically Speak2Go saying your pronunciation of that phoneme was good compared to all of your previous pronunciations. Or if it's red, your pronunciation of that phoneme was not as good as I've heard you do before, keep an eye on it. And at the end of the, let's just see if I can, how can I get it? Shuri, do you have anything that shows that? Oh, wait, I might have a little slide here. Something like this. Here, you can see something like this here. So this is just telling the students at a glance. It's not, you won't actually see it like this, that for the them, maybe they click the microphone up too quickly and they can't do that in the COBE. They have to finish speaking. It's happened twice here. So this is the feedback that they get, but they also get on the right-hand side of the screen a tick or a cross. A tick means that's equally as good or better than before, keep going. And a cross means, you know what, that wasn't as good, try again. So they get feedback as they're going through. And then they also, when they're finished, they get a grade that shows how much of the lesson that they've actually completed. So, and you see all of that. Okay. Just see if there's anything else. Now, I mean, I think the rubrics for the COBE have stayed the same. What are we looking to do? We need to make sure that the students understand the questions, that they interact fluently, and Speak2Go really supports that because it builds familiarity with the questions and with the answers. It builds confidence in speech and so on. In order to get to the next level of points based on the rubrics, they need to give extended answers. There are no one-word answers, no speaking in Hebrew, definitely no swear words. And by making them aware that they actually can speak a 7, 8-word sentence and then add another 7 or 8-word sentence and so on to create an answer that's going to give them good points, you're telling them that everything is within their reach. It's not rocket science. Correct use of complex language. We try to keep things, as I said, on a level where the students can understand what they're saying, not speaking vocabulary that they clearly have no understanding of, because they'll use it incorrectly. Rich vocabulary, exactly. There's variety there. They don't start every sentence with I think or I like. So you'll see the answers in the Speak2Go practice lessons. They use different chunks. So they're familiar with a number of chunks that they can use for themselves in their own way. And then important, I know it's not, I think it's only 5-10%, something like that, but that their pronunciation is clear enough that it can be understood. It's so important because why do all that practice and then have an accent that means that the teacher who's marking you can't understand and hear what you're saying? And Speak2Go it's unique for this because it gives that personalized feedback. So it meets many of the rubrics that if you had all that time to work one-on-one with every student, you would do beautifully, but you don't. And they need the extra practice. And this is just a great way to get it for them.
Caroline, I have another question. I got a bit confused, I'm sorry. From the catalog, I could see that there are different units and quite a lot. And when you got into the students screen, you showed us that there are only 4 lessons. So
you click on it again. Each one is, so what I showed you in the student screen is it's not the COBE. What I showed you in the student screen is the other training lessons. I'll just go and show you now.
Yeah,
so
please.
Once you and your students complete the training lessons, there's like a switch that flicks in Speak2Go and it releases whichever lessons you are supposed to have. So for example, year 12 in the COBE looks something like this. I think there should be one more thing on the end here. So part A takes you into all of the different practice lessons for part A. So you've got everything here. Part B, it's the same. You've got all the different parts, exactly the same research or introducing, researching, all the parts that are listed in the catalog.
So how do I get to the catalog in order to tell them to do a certain unit?
Okay, so there is when you do the class, when you do the course on the Google Classroom, there's a course that explains it to you, but you go into Speak to Go.
This is a must-do course.
Yeah,
I did it. I did it, but there was a link to the catalog, and then when I got into the site itself, I could.
Okay, so in here, under Products, click on Products in English. And when you scroll down to the bottom, it says here, Tochnit Shurim. And it will open it for you. But just to show you've got everything here. So when it comes to actually talking to your students, you know, you do your lesson. We're going to do our lesson on my hometown. And you go and you say to them, open Speak to Go. And when they go to Speak to Go, they're only going to see year 12 plus the training lessons. So it's very obvious to them what they're doing. And you're saying, this is part A in the exam. They understand the difference between the different parts. Go into it. And I want you to do my hometown. Was it my neighborhood? Here we go, my neighborhood 1. And they can click and they can start. So it's actually really, it's self-explanatory for the kids once they get into it. And you'll go through.
Let's talk about the neighborhood you live in.
Okay.
Listen to the question.
I'll give you an example.
Tell me about your neighborhood.
Tell me about your neighborhood. I don't actually know if my microphone will work because I'm on Zoom. I live in a pretty city. It's not too big. I live in a pretty city. It's not too big. So you've got the idea. They hear a question. Tell me about your neighborhood. They give 1, 2, 3 answers. I need to make my screen bigger for you. Okay. They hear the answers. They go to the next question.
Tell me more about your hometown.
Tell me more about your hometown. It's the same question. It's nice. I know my way around. It's nice. I know my way around. I can't read the next question. You can see the tick on the right-hand side. It's happy with me.
Tell me about your neighborhood.
And then you have a free speech question. So you can answer, I live in a small neighborhood. It's nice. I was born there. It only takes me 5 minutes to get to the beach. And I see the timer going the whole time. I live in a small neighborhood. It's nice. I was born there. It only takes me 5 minutes to get to the beach. And I see the timer going. So you can see that. So they watch the timer. They know how long they're speaking for. And then as they progress through the questions, 10, you'll have.
Do you live in a pretty neighborhood?
Okay, the final question.
Where do you live? Tell me something about your neighborhood. Is it a nice place to grow up in? Explain.
So there you go. So basically you've answered all the parts to that question, going through with 2, 3 answers each time that the students can practice, short, manageable sentences. And then you have your final exam style question. So as a teacher, what gets reported to you is how much of the lesson they've done, and you get to saved all of their free speech recordings, including this final one. And as far as the students are concerned, what they'll see on the summary screen is exactly what they've done in each part. So there's a lot of feedback. Students can also go and they can monitor their own progress. They can see what they've done according to each lesson. They can hear their own recordings and just play them back. They can download them if they want to. If they're not sure about something, they want to draw your attention to it. And their grades is their pronunciation grades. So they also get feedback. As well as you getting feedback, they get feedback. Okay, so that's Speak to Go. That's how Speak to Go meets the rubrics of the COBE. You've seen how to go into a lesson, use the catalogue to actually pick something out. You've seen a lesson plan that just shows it's just a really nice addition to any COBE or co-practice lesson. And you've seen how to go in and monitor the performance of your students and the progress of your students.
Useful. And especially because you have a lot of asynchronous lessons where you can ask them to go into the program, practice, and then you can go inside and check their progress in the control panel. I think you've made a great progress. And
Sorry,
I'm
I forgot everybody that Iris is here. Iris, I'm an absolute idiot. I'm so sorry. I
No.
completely forgot. Okay, so Iris is here because she worked with Speak to Go last year. And when she saw something that could be better, she said so. She said, you're doing it this way, but it would be helpful if I could see this instead. And as a result of teachers like Iris, you now have the control panel the way it is, useful, concise, and so on. And Iris also used, you used it for your COBE students as well last year, didn't you?
Yeah, we brought it to the PLC, and most of the English teachers in Rishon were supposed to use it last year.
Right.
But we started very late, I think in March, because it took time with all the authorization. So I hope this year it's going to be much more beneficial for all of us.
I hope so, because the exams are going ahead starting December.
Yeah. Did
you hear feedback from the students last year? Did it help them? What did they say? Did it help them with the COBE?
Our students loved using the Speak to Go. They loved going into it. They practiced. You can ask my son. Some of them thought like it was too easy, but they did it because we gave them a bonus for like once they went into Speak to Go, according to the number of times we saw them, because we didn't have all the control panel, but we saw the number of times they went in and how long they practiced. That's what we could see. And they got a bonus for their final grade for practicing in the Speak to Go.
Very clever.
Yeah, and they wanted to get the bonus, so they all went into Speak to Go and practice.
That's really good. It's a really valid point and a great idea. If you motivate the students, they'll practice, and they do like using it because it's personal and it's technology.
I think the most important thing is the fact that now we can practice in the Google Classroom, and we can also comment about things that work and don't work, and the things we want to change. And now, as teachers will ask, I think, for more videos, you know, the new ones, the new format of videos, I'm sure you're going to adapt to the new format as well. So
yeah.
What we have here is a product that is really aligning with the new COBE, and it's going to help all of us.
I'll tell you what would be great. Pick don't talk. I'll pick the most popular ones. Send me an email. Send me or Sherry an email with the practice video that you think is the most challenging, useful, and we'll take the majority 1, 2, 3, and we'll make them into Speak to Go practice lessons for you. So, because there are so many videos, so send a message to me or Sherry, just which video you think is the best, and we'll take the top couple and we'll make them into lessons.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a
challenge. Let's just take what you think you want to see in the Speak to Go lessons. Okay.
Last year they had problem with the microphones. Are they okay this year? They had 2 different microphones for hearing and for recording themselves. And they had some problems, especially at school, when they did it at school. So is it better this year?
Nemo, I'm not sure what you're referring to. I know it's working now. All the teachers who are going through the training lessons, I know we had a problem with that number 3, but they tell me that it is working. I don't have a problem with it. And I'm not sure what you're referring to.
I'll tell you, last year we had a problem. We bought the very expensive microphones.
The COBE microphones, right?
They weren't compatible with the program that we had on the Speak to Go and the computers. And so we had to buy the simple ones because the simple ones worked with the program.
Right.
So students use both the good ones, the simple ones. So it was a bit messy, but this year we know now that we're going to use only the simple microphones, and they work with Speak to Go. You don't need the advanced one.
And I think everyone's using their own. Nobody's sharing. It's everyone's at home anyway. But People are just using their own and that's it. You see the kids, they don't want to put something on their head or in their ears that somebody else has used. So they all bring their own.
Definitely, especially now that everything is from a distance. So
Yes, exactly. All right, Iris, thank you. And apologies. Does anybody have any questions? Elisheva will check the lesson 3 for you. Anybody else have any questions? Sherry, anything else?
No.
Okay, so B'Hatzlacha, everyone. It's a great program. Keep sending feedback. As Iris has proven, we have now a control panel that is so useful compared to what we had last year. And it's thanks to feedback from people like her. So keep sending feedback.
Just a minute, Caroline.
Yes, Nelly, hi.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, where can I find the recorded lesson that you have just given us?
אני שמתי לינק, כרגע זו ההודעה האחרונה בצ'אט, של ההדרכה בדיוק כזו, של מה שהייתה עכשיו, וניתן להיכנס אליה. חוץ מזה, זה הכל נמצא גם באתר.
אוקיי.
בסדר.
יש לי שאלה.
בבקשה.